Hi everybody, I'm Steve Paikin, and we are delighted to be here at the beautiful Music Hall in downtown Hamilton for another edition of TVO Today Live. Tonight we are playing a slightly different tune. We'll consider how music and musicians factor into our political culture, especially during these times of unprecedented threats to Canadian sovereignty and democracy since Donald Trump became president in January. This series, incidentally, is made possible by the generous support of the Wilson Foundation. We are very grateful to Red Wilson for making these conversations possible. We got a full house here today, and they're all here for free, thanks to Red Wilson's support. I think that deserves a round of applause for Linton Red Wilson. Now, let's introduce our three guests who are going to join us for this conversation. First, he is a Polaris Prize-winning rapper, writer, and former poet laureate of Edmonton, now a Hamilton resident. He's better known in musical circles as Cadence Weapon. Please welcome Raleigh Pemberton, right here. Second, a multi-award-winning singer-songwriter who was recognized just this year with the 2025 Humanitarian Award at the Junos. She is co-founder of the environmental advocacy group Protecting Escarpment Rural Land. Ladies and gentlemen, not far away from Burlington, Sarah Harmer, right here. And Mohawk artist, best-selling author, playwright, musician. You've known him in such iconic Hamilton bands as Junkhouse, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, and Lee Harvey Osmond. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Wilson Deohahage. Tom, well done.
Good to see you, Steve.
Pleasure. Okay, just by way of introduction a little bit more, I gotta say, you gotta love the lyrics of a song written by this guy that include the words Ford Nation and John Tory. That's my kind of song. That's my kind of song. The last conversation I had with a politician about you was a few years ago. The politician's name was Bill Davis, and I said to Mr. Davis, "You really don't know Sarah Harmer's work, do you? I know you two like each other, but you don't really know her music, do you?" And he said, "Steve, you forget. I have 12 grandchildren." So he definitely knew your music, and he really loved and respected you. We know that. Tom, where are you from?
Hamilton, Ontario.
What month were you born in?
Is this like an Instagram joke or something? June 9th, 1959.
Okay. I'm from Hamilton. June 9th.
Yes, that's right.
1960. You got a year on me.
I know.
Yeah, you got a year on me. But we're both hanging in there, eh, for a couple of senior citizens? All right, well done. All right, there we go. Okay, we knew we were going to put you on these crates here, and as a result, they said, "Can we do anything about, making them feel a little bit more comfortable?" And I said, "Oh, I know, I can bring something in." Raleigh, you want to show everybody what I brought in? Okay. Right? From the 1998 Eastern Final, which I've kept because you never know when you're going to need a seat cushion, and it happens we need them today. Okay, we've had two elections certainly in the province of Ontario this year. We just had a federal election. We had a provincial election earlier. Even more surprising than two elections in 1 year, there's a president south of the border, you may have heard, that wants to annex us as the 51st state. I would just like to find out from the three of you, off the top here, what you think about that idea.
I go first?
You go
on that
first.
One? I disagree. Personally, I think Canada should be its own country. I don't want it to be a part of America, no.
Sarah, how did you react when you first heard about Mr. Trump's desires?
I thought, try again. Try with somebody else. It's just a far-flung, ridiculous idea.
Mr. Trump doesn't seem to think so.
He doesn't really hold a lot of sway as far as his opinions with me, so I'm not surprised that he has another harebrained scheme.
Get off the fence and tell us what you really think, okay? Yeah. Tom, your thoughts when you first heard Mr. Trump's interest in us?
Well, I don't take my cues from politicians or sex offenders, so Not to be too judgy, though, Steve. It's ridiculous. I have a whole hour program that we could talk about how we should turn off that faucet and stop listening to this madness. It would save our hearts if we actually gave that a break.
Well, I'm sure it did not escape any of your notices that when this happened, one of the things people reached for first to express their either happiness or unhappiness with the idea was music. You can't go to a game of any kind in this country and hear people not boo the national anthem of the United States. You also can't hear them not sing O Canada with perhaps more gusto than we have ever heard in our lifetimes. Sarah, how do you react to the fact that we reached for music to express our political displeasure?
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It gives us so much in our lives. We take it with us into so many nooks and crannies of our families and our personal lives. So I'm not surprised that helps set us apart. You know, when music references places that you know and gives you a sense of yourself, I mean, I'm not surprised.
Rolly, how about you?
Yeah, an artist contacted me and he hit me up. He was like, I was wondering if you would like to collaborate with me and make an elbows up rap anthem. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. I feel like there's a lot of that going on right now, so I'm going to just chill on that. But I definitely feel like it's really nice to see people feeling really positive about being Canadian. I feel like for a long time there's a bit of like self-deprecation around the country. I don't know why, but it felt like that. And now everyone's like, yeah, Canada. But I also do think that we need to be careful of being too much like the Americans in that way. Too nationalistic, too jingoistic. I don't want it to go too far. That's the way I see it.
Tom, Premier Ford said, please don't boo the Star Spangled Banner when you go to a hockey game or a football game or whatever. Is he right to advise us that way?
Who cares, really?
Well, what's your view on it then?
Well, I know that I did a show in Brooklyn, New York, and it was a little theater there, and at the end of the night, everybody, I don't drink, but everybody was gathered around. These bartenders were super cool, and the one thing that they said, yeah, man, we don't know what's going up there, but why are you booing our national anthem? That's uncool, man. You shouldn't be doing that. Like, they took great offense, Americans, to that. I personally couldn't care less, and I didn't continue the conversation with that guy. He seemed pretty cool, and he had a hockey game on. It's a move to show a group effort of defiance, and if that's what it takes, let's just keep booing.
Sarah, I know you love the Leafs. Have you been to a Leaf game and booed the Star Spangled Banner?
Have not.
Would you?
I just listen to the Leafs on the radio. That's generally how I take it in. But would I? I mean, no, probably not. I love so many Americans. There's so many wonderful people in the U.S. I'm with Rolly on the overly nationalistic stuff. I personally don't think national anthems need to be sung at games.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's the Olympics or some big national thing, but I think it's overdone.
Would you boo the national anthem?
No, I don't think so, because I feel like we need to treat America more like any other occupied territory. And honestly, like half the people there don't agree with what's going on. And I know a lot of people in the States. I'm actually working on an album right now with an American producer, which is really bad timing for me, unfortunately. And he's in LA, and he's a lovely guy, and he has nothing to do with this. So I feel like we just need to give some of them a break as well.
Don't take out on the entire country what you think ought to be directed at one person?
Yeah, I don't agree with collective punishment at all. So that's the way I see it.
Gotcha. Do you, Sarah, feel like you have a special responsibility as a musician during times that are politically fraught? Because, as we've suggested, we kind of look to music, musicians, arts, culture for cues at times like this.
Probably, but I also kind of feel like I turtle up when I feel like there's that pressure to do something artistic, you know? Because I think it's an interesting, role to play. I do think music is part of the service industry. I do think we are there for people, and we play that role. And it is a responsibility and a duty to be there to help, be there to support. But I also kind of clam up sometimes when I have that extra expectation. So that's just me personally.
Tom, how about you? Do you feel a special burden to speak out at a time like this?
I have a burden to create art that inspires love, inspires us to be together anyway. Nothing on my path changes. The fact that people are gravitating towards music, let's just say they're gravitating toward art, because art is the true leader. Art is something that does, unlike churches, and governments and corporations are not trying to control us. Art is there to serve us, to give us something that we can actually carry with us for the rest of our lives. The speech of a politician, the product in Walmart, the last sermon that I saw in 1966, all those things I've forgotten about, but I remember the art that resonates with me.
As we suggested, your lyrics are overtly political. They're overtly anti-corporate. Do you feel an obligation at this time to reflect that, given the tenor of the times we live in?
I don't feel a particular urge to do it right now, because I don't know. I feel like it's inherently a part of what I do just in general, so I don't really have to change anything. I think also as artists, our existence is inherently political. Like the fact that we get to make a living being creative, being artistic, and sharing that with the world, while it feels like sometimes every force around us is trying to stop that from happening. I feel like that's inherently political. So I don't know. I think I feel like it's gonna manifest itself in ways that are not very obvious in my art practice, I find. I don't think it's gonna be elbows up anthem necessarily, but I think it'll show up in some way.
I should not use an overtly American analogy here, but frankly, I can't think of a Canadian one, so I'm going to do this. As you think about your fellow musicians, and present company is not allowed to be mentioned in this next question, as you think about the Mount Rushmore of Canadian politically bringing it musicians, who belongs up there on that mountain? Tom.
There's nothing about a protest song that really gives it any lasting quality. The lasting quality of art is really what enters our hearts. For me, Gordon Lightfoot touches this country from coast to coast at all times, and he has sung and written to specific parts of our history, and he has just delivered melodies and lyrics that we identify as truly Canadian and that we will always carry with us. That's my guy.
Sarah.
I'm always bad at the what's the guy? But I think of John K. Sampson in the Weaker Thans. He's always really been someone whose music I've been moved by, and the small detail and the big statements from his writing has always been inspiring.
Tragically Hip.
Heck yes.
Heck
of course, yes. The Tragically Hip, I mean, very much so, for sure.
For me, it's got to be Neil Young. As an artist, I always think before I do something, what would Neil Young do?
Yeah.
He's a guiding light. Well, I don't know. Depends on the situation, I don't want to live on a farm and stuff. I don't want to do all that. But yeah, he has a really good, strong artistic compass. He really follows what he believes in, and he's been so consistent over so many decades, and all the while making this timeless music that has just changed the world. So shout out to Neil Young.
Yeah.
Ditto.
That's a pretty good pantheon of some of our best ever, right? Well done, well done. Is there, I don't know, Tom, when you said Gordon Lightfoot, I thought of a couple of songs right away, the Canadian Railway Trilogy. I thought of that Black Day in July, which is more about the American experience than ours. But he's Canadian, singing about Canada. Is there a particular Canadian sound that you can either identify or describe when you're thinking of that kind of political protest song?
This is going to be a quick answer. I don't.
Okay. Sarah?
Can you repeat the question?
They're getting trickier, aren't they, Sarah?
You thought this was going to be an easy hour, right? No way. Is there a particular something that when you hear it on the radio, you say, oh, that's a Canadian song. There's something Canadian about that song that makes it stand out from anything else that's on the radio? Maybe in its political activism, maybe in its lyric, I don't know what.
I don't know. I think for me, with lyrically, you know, if it's touching on something that I know about in this country, I was thinking about Stomping Tom when Tom, and I love a lot of. I mean, he's got so many songs, and I only know a dozen or whatever. But I think of maybe an earnestness and a kind of a free quality in the music. But that's
good, Sarah.
hard to describe.
You get a vote from Tom on that one.
I like that.
Yeah.
I want what she said.
Raleigh, how about you?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the Canadian political music that I think of, it's got this spirit of the outsider. I think that's what really makes it stand apart from other countries and music from other countries. I think of there's just this kind of isolated strangeness that is inherently Canadian that I think is really cool when it's celebrated in music. I think of people, think about like Buck 65 or something. You know, that's an artist who I really was a bit of a mentor to me, and he showed me that you could be different in rap in Canada. And I feel like, yeah, that is just his existence is political. You know, I also think of a lot of like the indigenous rap that I've heard too. You know, Snotty Nose, Reds Kids. A lot of the stuff they're doing, that is super Canadian. That's like the most Canadian thing I can think of.
I'm guessing that not that you're not always in touch with your inner Canadian, but you've just taken a train ride to Vancouver and back, right?
That's right.
Okay, what did that do for you?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, I love sitting around.
Why'd you do it?
Why'd I do it? I didn't want to fly. I've flown a ton in my life, and I knew the Junos were out in Vancouver, and I said, hey, I'd love to go if I can take the train. So I said, the Junos, they must know somebody at VIA. Can you guys talk? And, you know, it was wonderful. It was beautiful. It was very social. We had to, you know, I like people, but I'm a kind of a quiet person. So we had to have meals with, new people. Every meal was all, very collective experience. So it was very social and beautiful. And a lot of Americans, there was a little bit of a dust up. My inner cop kind of came up when I heard someone behind me saying that they were Americans, very loud, and they said that they soon wouldn't need passports to get to Greenland. Oh. And I said, well, that's not very funny. And they said, oh, we're just joking. And I didn't know that I was going to say this, but I said, the aggressor should not be joking.
Oh, yeah!
And I got a few hat tips from some older couples, looked back and said, there you go. So,
all right,
yeah.
Game over. Sarah Harmer wins.
You know, everyone on the train was just like, yo, you won't believe what I just saw Sarah Harmer do.
It happens occasionally.
That's pretty cool. That's 2 in a row for her, right, Tom?
That's I'm keeping score, trust me.
Yeah. How about you? Do you get a different sense of Canada if you are, say, out somewhere versus in Ganawake?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the first time I crossed the country, I crossed the country by train when I was young, but we were touring in a van with a U-Haul on the back, and I'd never driven across the country. I'd never seen our country from that perspective. And we hit Manitoba, and it was October, Steve, and the fields were golden and beautiful. And I said, I've never seen anything so massive and incredible in my life. And I was looking out the window, and 3 days later, I looked out the window at the same thing. Golden, beautiful, But I think I was reading a magazine at that point. I didn't care anymore. But experiencing this country through the valleys and through the prairies and through the mountains, you get a complete sense that you belong here. My soul belongs here. I'll never forget driving through the mountains, and we three of us, Russell Wilson passed away, myself, Bob Lanois in the back seat, and he said, put on the Canadian Railroad trilogy, and we put it on, and as he did, a train came right beside us and sped right through us. And guy's an ex-biker, me, I'm just a knucklehead from Hamilton, Bob Lanois. We all started crying.
Yeah.
We all started crying. It was such a moving moment. And that's, once again, Lightfoot's voice, the train, the mountains. It felt wonderful.
Can I say one more thing about the train? I just felt like a deep connection to history in this country, right? We got around by rail, even from small town to small town. It just felt, my dad took the train in the 50s out west, and so it just had this deeper lineage that felt really grounding, and yeah, it felt really good to be part of.
I got some things to say about that, by the way. Not that particularly, but yeah.
Okay.
Can we give a shout out to your dad here, who's 96 and still around in Burlington, Ontario?
Yeah, sure
Well
thing.
done, Dad.
Yeah.
What's your dad's name?
His name is Alan Clement.
Okay,
Yeah.
Alan, good stuff. You're an Edmonton guy originally. You're here in Hamilton now. Is that Canada different from this Canada?
Very.
How so?
You know, I actually do think Edmonton and Hamilton, they actually have a lot of kinship, and I think it's why I think your trip is a really great thing that I think everyone in Canada should do at least once in their life. You've got to see the other side. You got to see how the other side lives. That is, I think, the cause of most of the division in this country is the fact that people in Edmonton don't get what it's like over here and vice versa. So, and you know, we need to lower all the flight prices. We need to make transportation way more accessible in this country. High-speed trains now, let's go. Because it's, you know, the same price for me to fly to Edmonton as it is to fly to England. Like, it should not be that way.
You can go to New York 3 times for what it costs to go to Edmonton once.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's an issue.
Yeah, no, it is a huge issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I've lived in Edmonton, I've lived in Montreal, I've lived in Toronto, I live in Hamilton now, and I feel that has given me a really well-rounded feel alongside all the touring I've done around Canada. And it's really fun to tour and play my albums and see how it impacts people in different cities based on the vibes. Like when I go to the prairies, it's a lot more meaningful. I think to have rap from somebody who's from there. And it's really cool to see, you know, smaller towns and stuff too, where it means more when you come to town. You know, that's any musicians who are watching this, you know, don't skip over Edmonton. Don't skip over the smaller towns and the prairies and stuff. You might be surprised by how much people care about it, you know?
You won't be surprised, but they might be surprised.
No, exactly. Shout out to Edmonton right now. You know?
Well, this seems to be in part because of the annexation talk from Donald Trump, and in part because we seem to be going through a kind of a reborn, not love of country, we've always loved our country, but certainly prepared to take an extra step to remind the world that we're Canadian and we're different from them. And I wonder, Sarah, maybe you first, is this potentially a moment for Canadian music? Because we're looking for things to express our Canadianness, and music's a great way to do it.
I mean, maybe it's a moment too for confidence, right? And just to be more overt and to be more sure of ourselves. And I think that will breed more art, more music, more, you know, not being afraid to take up space. And so I don't know if it's going to get into, you know, so literally our Canadianness, you know, as far as promoting that through the music, but I think it might just power more confidence and self-assurance. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, when I did a tour up the West Coast last year, it was great, and you know, wonderful promoters, people super friendly, super confident. Hey, welcome, want a coffee? Da da. And we got into Canada, and people were super sweet, but it was a much more reserved kind of quality, and I really noticed it. And so And that's not a bad thing. I mean, the reserve is all right, but I do think maybe we're getting a bit more confident with ourselves.
Tom, what do you see?
I think that the only thing that's, the music is always going to be there. The theater is always going to be there. The literature is always going to be there. It's up to Canada to discover it, because it's often the case where it's discovered elsewhere. We have that colonial attitude that if it's from here, it can't really be that good. And we've all lived with this. I've lived in this town my entire life, and this town has it, this country has it, and I think we have to shed that. We have to embrace the power of art that comes out of this country, because the rest of the world is. So we shouldn't be the last ones to catch up. That's all.
I think you're catching up to Sarah with that answer. They seem to like that one.
I think I did pretty good, Steve.
Rolly, how about you? Is this a moment for Canadian music, potentially?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's a shame. People, they're talking so much about buy Canadian when it comes to the ketchup bottle. But when it comes to an artist in Canada, they're reluctant to really get behind it in the same way. So, like, obviously, I really hope, exactly what Tom was saying. There seems to be a bit of an inferiority complex among Canadians, especially when it comes to the music and the art that comes from here. These things, they ebb and flow, though, over time, where it felt like in the 70s, for instance, Canada was super lit. We had so much great music that was just world-renowned, and I felt like we had like this artistic background all the way up to the Prime Minister at the time, And I feel like it ebbs and flows. We had that a bit. Hopefully this groundswell of support for Canada leads to more support for Canadian artists. But I think the thing I would tell artists in Canada is just be yourself and don't rely on the States. I feel like so much of our careers, you've got people that we work with that are always like, but we got to think about maybe doing an American tour, or like, should we get a US PR? There's in the back of our head, it's like, how is it going to land with the Americans or whatever? And
Well, let me follow up on that, because you mentioned earlier you've got a producer who's in California, yes?
Yeah.
Do you worry about alienating American audiences if we push back too much against Trump and the 51st state nonsense?
No, not at all. I'm going harder than ever.
Okay.
No, now's the time for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm talking about it on that album too. It's really been cool to see both sides of it, fly in, come in. It's all in LA I've been, which I gotta say, LA is not America. It's like its own thing, like LA and New York, like the coastal kind of places, they're like their own countries really. But yeah, I'm there and I'm making this music. I've got a song called God's Country, where I talk about America and some of the things I've observed. So yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where this current moment is making us feel like we need to dig in and just stay, Canadian only or whatever. But I feel like I've had so many strong relationships with American artists, and I feel like just because the leadership of our countries is having a little spat doesn't mean we have to totally separate ourselves, So that's the way I'm seeing it.
Do you, Sarah, ever, or do you think other artists ever pull punches because we don't want to alienate the Americans too much, because after all, that is a big audience down there?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that.
Domestic
Shortest answer of the night.
Tom, how about you?
I think that, I believe that as we develop as artists, we have to learn a lot of hard lessons, and one of them is trying to extend what we're creating to please somebody else. I know I'm not supposed to use the F word on this show, Steve, so I'm not going to, but F that. We need to create as artists what is important for us, because if we make art that resonates with people, we're going to have allies, and then we can have a conversation. We need to create openly with a beautiful open heart so that things can be seen the way we want them to be seen for one moment. I do visual art. I work for months on a painting. It goes up in a gallery. When my painting went up in the McMichael Gallery, I went and watched people, and it's 3 seconds. You get them for 3 seconds when you make art. So you got to make that 3 seconds really powerful, and you got to make it good.
Cool. We are just a little over the halfway point of our program, and so I'm going to do a little homework here and say, hello everybody. Let me remind you that you are watching an edition of TVO Today Live. We are at the Music Hall in Hamilton. This is a converted old church, which is just an absolutely gorgeous space. We've got a full hall here today. We want to thank the Wilson Foundation, which has supported several years worth of TVO Today Live episodes right now, and we're really happy to be here in downtown Hamilton today with the man who calls himself Cadence Weapon, and Sarah Harmer, and Tom Wilson. Okay, I'm going to try it again, Tom. Hang on. Dale Hahage.
It's outstanding. You're outstanding, Steve. Thank you for that effort. As I said backstage, I waited 55, 60 years for my Mohawk name, so I appreciate that you make that effort.
We know that you went through a significant, what shall we call it, an epiphany, a realization in your life. Yes. Tom he's on his best behavior today because he's on the Pokeroo Network and he knows he can't be dropping F-bombs whenever he wants. So, but you did add this. Can you tell us what the added indigenous part of your name means and why it's significant to you?
It means two roads, which is completely significant to my continuing story and my search for identity. I grew up as thinking I was a big, puffy, sweaty Irish guy for 53 years and found out that I'm actually Mohawk. My mother is Mohawk, my father's Mohawk from Ganawage, so I'm actually a Mohawk man. And that has changed everything about my creation. Just to continue, Steve, because I'm here to talk more about creation. As I say, I don't take my cues from politicians, but I have one goal, and that is trying to get the indigenous issues and hardships into the news cycle. It is almost impossible to get that in. And my belief is, and this goes back to the subject of your show today, through art, we can actually nudge that ahead. You know, we can't be at the top of a Twitter feed. I deleted Twitter, by the way, Steve. You know, we can't be the top of a Facebook thing. You know, indigenous issues often feel to me in the world like an annoying mosquito at people. But if we create something that draws them in, and as I said, if we can make allies through art, through song, through the music that we're making, we're taking big steps for what we believe in our heart.
Tom, there are a bunch of people who think you're doing pretty well at it because I know you've got long hair, but it's not long enough to cover that snowflake on your lapel. You've got the Order of Canada, so well done. Congratulations. Yeah. Can I, as long as we're dealing with names here, where does Cadence Weapon come from?
Yeah, so Cadence Weapon is something I've had since I was a teenager. You know, I've been doing this for decades now, and back then I used to freestyle, and whenever I freestyle, this kind of mantra would come up all the time, and it would be, my cadence is my weapon, my cadence is my weapon. And it just kind of stuck. I was like, that's it, that's who I am. You know, my flow is my way of getting my message across to the world, you know?
Sarah Harmer, why haven't you changed your name?
I know. I really never wanted to be a solo musician because I was like, I just want to be in a band. I don't really have a great name for a solo act. But yeah, no, Sarah Lois Harmer, that's just me.
Seems to work.
It's what I was given.
I think so. In some respects, you three are all in a very risky business. I don't have to tell you that you say one, foul move, or you say one thing that maybe could be misinterpreted out there. You saw what happened to the Dixie Chicks in the United States. They were canceled. Is it Nickelback? Yeah. Was it Nickelback who did a MAGA concert with Kid Rock? Okay, and then all of a sudden, you got a lot of people in Canada thinking, now, they had their issues to begin with, but still, got a lot of people.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't represent Nickelback. I'm
Same
from
city.
Alberta. I'm from Alberta, but I don't represent them. I'm just putting that out there.
Do you worry, though, Tom, about saying one wrong thing that could get you canceled for a decade?
Steve, I have driven several careers straight into the ditch. And you still have me on your show. I can't believe it.
Well, that is a fair point. How about you?
I don't think I care that much. You know, I think you want to be careful. I'm opinionated. I can be opinionated. So I do want to, you know, kind of get my facts straight sometimes and not just shoot from the hip on things, because I know things live a long time on the internet or whatever. But I'm mostly making music or making art for myself too, just something that I want, that I like, that I feel is good, and then what happens after that, you know. I know that wasn't quite your question, but
No, but is that the approach? You think to yourself, if I make it and I like it, I think it will find an audience. Is that the idea?
Yep.
Yeah.
I make it for myself. I make it for people whose music I like, you know, who I'm fans of. I just quietly, like, I'm hoping that they'll like it, but I'm not necessarily aiming for a particular audience, or hoping that, that I'm going to land it in a certain way. I'm doing it more for myself first.
Okay, you got the microphone poised now.
I'm
You
ready.
got something, right?
Yeah.
Go.
No, I think the role of the artist is to be fearless. You know, I feel like I can't create with fear, and I feel like I need to push myself to go beyond my comfort zone when I create, personally, with the stuff I make. And I don't, you know, I feel like anytime I have that feeling like, oh, should I have said that, or should I have written that in this song, or like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do that, I lean harder into it because I know something is there.
Can we do a real life example here?
Yeah, let me think about it.
Well, no, you dropped Galen Weston's name in one of your songs.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Okay.
true.
Did you hear back from anybody?
No, I didn't hear back from that, but I had to do that. That was too good. That was too good.
For those who haven't heard the song, do you want to put it in context for us?
Yeah, I just said in a song that I have with Super Duty Tough Work, it's called Nice Try, and the lyric is, I'm just talking about inequality in Canada, and he's basically the mascot for that. And so I said I wanted to drag Galen Weston by the sweater vest.
Because, he does those commercials with the sweater on. And,
It is.
yeah.
I find it very annoying because it's like this kind of Canadian image or something where he's just, I'm just, shucks, I'm just walking over here and I've got a can of mayonnaise or whatever, like, and he's just so rich, it's just disgusting. No man should have that much money, but so I had to do that, and I feel, when I'm in the studio and I say something like that, and everybody in the studio is laughing, I'm laughing. I'm like, okay, I have to do this. This is like too crazy.
I'm going to let him know. I want him to be in touch with you, and you need to hear back about that.
I heard isn't he retired or something, or he's
What's
out of
that?
he's out of the game, isn't
Well,
he?
he got turfed from the commercials. That's right.
He hung the sweater vest up. Honest to God, what
He was
a
scared I was
knob.
going to drag him.
Do you think, Tom, that musicians are more overtly and obviously political today to match the more overtly and obviously political times in which we live?
No, nobody is going to take the crown from Pete Seeger ever. He is the guiding light. He is the North Star for artists who are going to direct what they're creating that way. And he got beaten for it, He got blackballed. He got all the terrible stuff that could happen to a person happen to him, and he kept banging on that banjo and singing those songs. And there's actually you'll be interested, there's a photograph of him and Woody Guthrie on Burlington Street during a strike from back in, I don't mean to be, okay, good. I mean, those guys, nobody was paying them, they were showing up. Which draws me just to my next point, Steve.
Which is?
Which is to follow up with action, that our creativity is our greatest asset, and it is the thing that opens up the door and gives us an opportunity to be able to be active with what we are singing about, what we believe. And that is the follow-up for all artists, musicians, whatever it is. It's kind of put your money where your mouth is, you know what I mean, and get out there and do some work.
Well, Sarah, you've done that as it relates to the escarpment. You did a song called Escarpment Blues. Have things unfolded as you had hoped they would when you did that song?
You mean as far as the Mount Nemo being protected for all
Absolutely,
time?
environmental protection.
I mean,
yeah.
we're in the middle of an Ontario Land Tribunal hearing right now. We won in 2012. Mount Nemo was protected, and the Lafarge.
Where's Mount Nemo?
It's in North Burlington. It's up on the escarpment up Guelph line. And
She knows, yeah.
and no, I mean, I think one of the things too about being a musician or artist is that your schedule is kind of flexible, so that you can get in there and help organize and show up when other people are, you can go to meetings and stuff when other people are having to work. So there's a flexibility with getting in there, and we got microphones in front of us, so there is that opportunity to project and amplify what's going on. But to answer your question, we were able to, our community group, all volunteer, stop this proposal back in 2012. The province dismissed it. Company came back 5 years later to try again, and now we're back in a hearing. So it's vigilance, it's persistence, it's organizing with people that you would otherwise never know, and common cause to protect long-term environmental resources.
Way to go, Sarah.
Do you think you can win by the end of the day?
Yeah, our evidence is great. Yeah, the species up there, the wetlands, the putting an industrial, like expanding a incredibly destructive industry in the center of a UNESCO world biosphere, where so many people live. There's just hundreds of wells, endangered species. Like, it's incredibly difficult to pull that off, and they can't do it. So I've got a good feeling about how this is gonna resolve, and then we're gonna have to just make it so that it's a permanent decision, and they can't come back and try again.
Because you've been at it for more than a decade.
It's been 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, we started Pearl in 2005. Yeah, it's been good work. It's been good work. I don't regret it. Like, I actually thank the company for really bringing so much more out of the community, bringing so many more people together. I've met so many people I otherwise wouldn't. I've learned so much. I mean, it's really good work. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's talk about this. In the past federal election, we did see some relatively high-profile endorsements. Everybody remembers Mike Myers, right, with the elbows up. Neil Young endorsed Mark Carney. There was an open letter actually signed by, I think, about 100 musicians opposing the leader of the Conservative Party. There's a popular Canadian producer. Okay, Hillary, how does he pronounce his name again? Boy Wonder, that's right, but he spells it B-O-I, the number 1, and D-A. Boy Wonder. He endorsed Pierre Poilievre. Question, Tom, how influential is any of that?
Oh, it's really hard to say. I think it's wonderful to hear Neil Young and Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live put elbows up. That's inspiring. But we can't rely on those personalities to see us through. It really is up to us. It's up to us as individuals to make this a better planet. As I said earlier, we can't rely on corporations or churches or governments to do it. It's up to us as individuals and as group and organization. I mean, Camilla Harris had Beyonce, and it meant nothing.
Wasn't enough.
It was a great cheerleading moment, but it meant nothing in the end. It really comes down to us. And if we are inspired by a moment when Neil Young speaks his piece, when we are inspired by Mike Myers putting his elbows up, that's great. That's what we need. But we need to do the hard work.
In a few minutes, we're going to take questions from this audience, so we have a microphone over here. Feel free to line up and get ready to ask questions. As I ask Sarah Harmer, this happens frequently in political life, where a politician likes a song, uses the song for walk-in music or whatever, and the artist that they are using doesn't like it and would rather they didn't use that song. How do you resolve that issue?
I have no idea. I would just,
Should they be allowed to use your music for whatever they want and not necessarily even if you disagree with it?
I really don't know. I like to hear, though, when bands come forward and say, hey, I'm not into, George Bush or whatever using Rockin' in the Free World or whatever, or, I feel like the Tragically Hip had a song maybe that Poilievre was using or something recently, or that they came forward and said, we're not into your policies or your philosophies, and so we want to create that separation. I don't really know technically if or whether you have some rights to say, like, I feel like music is kind of out there for everybody, but no, if they're using it, for their own, to try to have that association with you, and you are firmly opposing what they're up to, what do you think? Really?
No, yeah, for sure. Like,
If Trump wants to use "Born in the USA," Bruce Springsteen should just mind his own business?
No,
No.
no. He's got to say something.
because this whole situation, the idea of using an artist's song to promote your political platform without asking them before, it's kind of a consent thing to me. I feel like it's a little creepy to go around and be like, hey, I'm going to play this Bruce Springsteen song. I know he doesn't like me at all, but I'm going to do it anyway. To that I say, my lawyer will be contacting you soon.
Tom, what about it?
Volvo used one of my songs. They had to go through my publisher. They had to pay money, believe it or not. It was fantastic. I don't know, none of my songs get used for politicians, but back probably 20 years ago, George W. Bush was coming home from the Pope's funeral, and he had his iPod on, and the press said, George W. Bush, what are you listening to? And he said, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings.
No kidding.
Which most of the world said, who the hell are Blackie and the Rodeo Kings?
That's you.
Yeah, it was me. As a result, we got inundated with wanting to go into press. I forget the guy DJ in New York, the loudmouth DJ. No,
Flex?
no, not actually a musical DJ.
Howard
just a
Stern?
guy that talks.
Howard Stern.
Yes,
Yeah.
that guy. I am going to be 66. I can't remember. I don't even know where I am right now. Anyways, what are you going to do? It's going to be, the moment is when you disagree, is not when they're parading your material around. So our opportunity to object and to protest is really still completely intact.
Okay, let me do a follow-up here, because I'm going to do all the complimentary stuff, and then I'm going to hit you with the hard-hitting question. Okay, here we go. Okay, you got recognized at the Canadian Music Awards with the Alan Slate Humanitarian Spirit Award. That's a very nice award to get. You've been active as a land defender. You may have had some interaction with the police a while ago, which may have resulted in your being arrested. Yeah, okay, I'm still okay here. Does your profile as a musician give you power or protection in that situation?
Absolutely not. The mayor of Caledonia wanted me arrested. I got arrested. That's all there is to it. I have absolutely no power. And I'm like kind of like a junior B celebrity to begin with. Let's just start with that. Everybody knows me in Fortino's when I go for work.
Shout out Fortino's, all right.
In Hamilton, that's iconic.
Yeah,
That's huge.
that's a supermarket for people outside
Oh, yeah,
of the
yeah,
hammer,
no, and here's how it goes. It goes, hey, Tom, still playing the old guitar? Oh, yeah. Well, hey, where are you playing? Well, we're going to be playing Massey Hall next month. Oh, yeah, where's that? Oh. When are you playing the Corktown?
Corktown neighborhood of Hamilton. There you go. Okay, good. Does getting arrested make you less inclined to take direct action?
To do which?
Does being
Not at all. Gloves are off, man. You know what? When I got arrested, 2 OPPs came to my door, and it gave me an opportunity to use a line I've been wanting to use for 20 years that Newman used in the Seinfeld show. I leaned against the frame of the door, and I said, what took you so long? They didn't think it was so funny. But to be able, you know what? I just got to say, for all of us, you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to play a guitar, but the buoyancy that we allow ourselves is our greatest strength to be able to ride through all this crap.
Well, let me try one more before we go to the audience here, and that is Andrew Cash, Chuck Angus, they ended up being members of Parliament. Charlie's just stepped down after a really long career. You ever want to run for office?
I've been asked. Yeah,
I'll bet.
Yeah, a few times. And I'm glad that I said no, because I think I can affect more change outside of the system.
Okay. Sarah?
Charlie Angus's book is excellent. I just finished Dangerous Memory. Highly recommend it. So good for these times right now, for looking at the 80s, the past, and where we're at now.
He's got an amazing background. I read the book too. He's
Yeah,
really got an amazing
I
background.
loved it. I read it on the train. But your question was?
Would you ever run for office?
I feel the same as Raleigh. Like I've been asked a few times, but I got the best job right now, and I do think being active and taking it seriously and playing the roles that I can play as a musician and a bit of a freer spirit is where I'll probably stay.
Did former Premier Bill Davis ever ask you to run for office?
He did not. But he knew my grandfather, who did run for office in Peel. He ran federally, Stanley Harmer, for the Liberals. Yeah. My parents were big, organizing political people, and so I love politics. I'm interested in it, but I just couldn't be responsible for all those constituents. And I think that I really respect politicians. The job is onerous, and there's a lot to it. So I think I hats off to a lot of the politicians I admire out there. Not all, though, of course, but there's
Tom, you
a lot
ever
of good
wanted
ones.
to do it?
Hell no. My first wife is the mother of my children, the person I share being grandparent with. She's a politician.
Can we say? I mean,
Her name is Sandy Shaw.
Sandy Shaw, New
and
Democrat from
she
Hamilton
kicked
West,
ass in
Lancaster,
Hamilton West.
Yeah.
When it wasn't expected that the NDP were going to take anything, it's because she is really, really smart and really active. She's really smart, which is why she is not with me anymore. And she took me on for 18 years. So taking on the conservative government is like a walk in the parks.
I would add principled to your list of attributes for her.
Yes.
Principled.
Yeah.
She's one of the good ones down there, I would say. Okay, with that, we've got, look at this lineup. All right, let's get to it. If you wouldn't mind, just give us your first name, where you're from, and fire away.
My name is Scott. I'm from Hamilton. My question is, we've talked about the annexation of Greenland, annexation of Canada. We haven't talked about the annexation threats towards Palestine. Why? And my question for you as amazing musicians is, has the horrific genocide by Israel against the Palestinian people, has it affected your creativity in music? And have you felt constraints to speak up about this apocalyptic situation? And Steve, my question for you
Well, hang on.
is
Let's get one at a time
Okay,
here. Does
thank
anybody
you.
want to weigh in on that? Okay, go ahead.
For sure.
Raleigh?
I feel like, first thing I want to say is free Palestine. That's just how I feel. I feel like as an artist, we gotta stand on business. We gotta say what we believe in, and I think I love it. I see you got the flag. You're repping. Who knows if they'll still make it on TV? But thank you for your question. And it does follow me every day. What's going on in Palestine right now? So yeah.
Completely. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that flag. Thank you for that question. I love this country. My job every day is to work for the indigenous world. Canada, although I love it, this country is responsible for some of the grossest and most inhumane attempts to wipe out a population in the history of mankind. So Canada should probably think about that once in a while, too.
Good. Thank you, sir. Can we get, sorry, you're going to forgive me, one question per person I think is fair. We've got a long list of people, long lineup behind you that want to get in on
Very
it.
quick, Steve. You said politics is about tone and about timing when you responded to Sarah Jama in October 23, your October 13th letter. I disagree. Politics is about courage. It's about truth-telling. The Western media, including you, have failed us completely in Canada and around the world about what is actually happening in Palestine. Have you apologized, Mr. Paikin, to Sarah Jama?
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her, so someday I hope I will, and I'd love to have a conversation with her. Thank you for your contribution today. Let's hear from the next
Thanks
person.
very much.
Thank you.
Shout out to her, though. She's wonderful. Sarah Jama.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're from.
I'm Dan from Kitchener, and first of all, I want to say I've worked in music my whole life, and I'm proud to be Canadian. I did a post on my Facebook page on March the 6th when all the Buy Canada stuff was going on, and I said, since we're buying Canadian products, why aren't we supporting Canadian content in our music and art and on Canadian radio? What about 100% Canadian content on our radio? And
Okay.
I got a lot of remarks. And I mean, really, I just put that out there, not to say we should go 100% all the time, but maybe have days or shows where it's 100%.
Let's get some feedback on that.
Yeah.
Who wants to weigh in on that?
I mean, God love CanCon that they put that together whenever that happened in the 70s, or you know,
50 plus years ago.
yeah, to give us, you know, some elbow room to exist next to such a behemoth of a cultural. But I would also want us not to be too isolationist. You know, there are so many countries, so much great music out in the world. We need each other, right? We have these issues right now with the regime in the U.S., but I think it's, yeah, a bit of both. You know, I think it's really important that we have space for our own art on the airwaves for music, but I also wouldn't want to close my ears or have everyone, you know, not exposed to so much of the world out there.
Gotcha. Okay, Dan, thanks for that. Yes, please.
Yes, I'm Martine from Beamsville, formerly Hamilton.
Martine from Beamsville.
Yes.
Martine, did I get this pin from you
Yes,
earlier? That's
yes,
yours, eh?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Make sure JJM gets his.
I'll make sure.
We were talking about the Canadian anthem, and it is an honor to sing the Canadian anthem. And to the panel, if you were to sing the Canadian anthem in the U.S., what event would it be the most important for you? And if it was in Canada, what event would it be for you? And I'm hoping you say Toronto Maple Leafs game.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can feel that. I think for me, if it was in the States, it would be the NBA All-Star Game, because there's a really storied history of singing the anthem there. For the American anthem, there's a classic performance by Marvin Gaye. And so and he did it with a drum machine, and it was just in the 80s. So I would do an homage to that, probably. And then if it were Canada, you know, it'd have to be Game 7, Stanley Cup Finals, Edmonton Oilers versus Toronto Maple Leafs in Edmonton. So if that ends up happening, you know who to call.
You know, that'd be a one anthem game, right?
Yeah.
That's a one anthem game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it'd be cool if you did the NBA All-Star game? There'd be a Hamiltonian named Shane Gilgeous-Alexander at the game, and wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
That's my man,
Yeah.
SGA.
Either you two want to? No, you're good? You're good. He nailed it. Okay, next, thank you.
Hi, I'm Dean from Cambridge, and my question is, in a time where making music is more accessible than ever, public schools and post-secondary programs are seeing a lack of funding and interest in their music programs. Some of this is due to COVID. Colleges with shorter and more affordable music programs like Mohawk have been cut. TDSB is considering cutting their music program and music teacher itinerants, which is go from school to school. What can be done to reverse this trend in our educational institutions and culture?
It does seem, Tom, like the first thing they go for is music.
I have no idea how to fix it. I'll tell you that they would rather spend their money buying, you know, new kidney pads for the football team than giving a kid a violin. The art, I'm a true believer that art saves lives, and when you're young and when you're misdirected or when you're trying to find your way, being able to control an instrument and make notes or sing with your voice is sometimes the only salvation that you can have. And it's an isolated sport sometimes. It's you in your room conducting yourself with your instrument. I don't know what's going to be done. All I know is that I am with you 100% that the art programs are more important to our children and our developing children than anything else going on in school. Just to finish with that. Yeah. I'm just going to finish with this one thing, is that it's been said before, we're all born artists. We all freely dance, we sing songs, we make up stories, we go to school, and they F us, okay? So we need the arts still in place to be able to recreate that child that we were.
Sarah.
I was going to say, yeah. Music Counts is an organization, Music Counts in Canada, across the country, that funds music programming in schools. So the more that we can get people to know about that and support that's one way to help.
Excellent. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Patrick from Steel City. About 30 years ago, Maestro Fresh West released an album, Nah, This Kid Ain't From Canada. And about 20 years ago, Cadence Weapon had his debut album. And in 2005, we're looking at more of being citizens of the internet and less citizens of our nation states. Has that become a dystopia now? Is that exploded or has that been deflated? I do see the internet more as a problem rather than a solution that it was at the turn of the millennium.
You want to start on that one?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So my most recent album is called Roller Coaster, and it's all about how technology has impacted our lives today, particularly with social media and things like that. And I'm a really good example of what I think was positive about the early internet. I coming from Edmonton, where there wasn't really a strong local music infrastructure, where there weren't a lot of labels, there weren't a lot of rap labels or anything. It was really on the internet that I started getting buzz by posting my stuff on blogs and getting on message boards and things like this. And at that time, you could access your audience very directly in a way that you can't today. Where now you have, the Facebook, Meta, and Twitter, and all these companies, they throttle how many people can see anything that you post. So now, none of you probably even know I put out an album. Thanks a lot.
They know now.
Zuckerberg. Yeah.
They know now.
But yeah, I definitely think it has gotten much worse. I think it was a very optimistic moment back in the early 2000s. And I think people really need to speak out about it more, for sure.
Oh, it's absolutely ripped the human experience away from sharing music. Steve, if I just bought Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, which would have gone back to about 1972 or so, and I said, hey man, I just got this record. You'd have to come over to my house. We'd have to go down to the basement. We'd have to put the needle on one side of the record, roll a joint, smoke the joint, turn the record over, and experience hearing Tangled Up in Blue for the first time ever. And we did it together, Steve.
And that never
we're
happens
really
anymore.
high now.
That never happens ananymore, does it?
It just doesn't happen anymore. The closest I ever saw was walking with my daughter years ago when she was in high school, and she had her earbuds in, and she put one in my ear so that we could share the moment at the same time.
That's sweet.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah.
That is great. Good. Yes, please. Next.
Yeah, I think we need more listening parties like book clubs. Steve, my name's Gurpreet. I'm from Hamilton, born and raised. I just want to first acknowledge your work and connection and my intro to you via our participation in Reach for the Top. You were a great trivia host. I was a mediocre trivia buff, representing Westdale High School. So thanks for lending your talent and, in consequence, making me a lifelong TVO supporter. Raleigh, Sarah, and Tom, I want to thank you for making Hamilton and Burlington your home, as that's an ongoing choice, and it's definitely at times politically influenced decision. Sarah, you made comments tonight about making art for myself first and being part of the service industry. Steve, you started to touch on this, which musically certainly lends itself to in a variety of manners, including political anthems. I was wondering if you or any of you could share some of the legal mechanisms you've possibly used or are available for musicians if and when your music is co-opted by political people or parties that you can't or won't support for any reason. Cease and desist orders are seemingly always reactive, and I'm just curious how much legal power your ownership rights have when you put your music into the public service industry space. And lastly, conversely, Is there any song of yours that you would happily give any politician or political organization? Thank you, Miigwech.
Thanks for that, Gurpreet. Okay, what about the legal? Let's do the legal aspect first.
I don't know.
I've been with Sony ATV Publishing since 1993. They have had to go to bat. They had to go to bat with, I don't know, some product out there that was taking the song. And that's what their job is, because they're a business partner. You rely on your business partner to, you keep moving around back there. You rely on your business partner to be able to pick up and do their job. And that's what I do. So I actually don't think about it too much. And I don't worry about anything anymore, because if somebody hears some of my music, and if I'm in Fortino's and someone hears something I just released, it's like astonishing to me. I can't believe, thank you for listening to that. It's the same way I felt when I was a kid and somebody bought my record or they heard it on the radio.
Raleigh.
Yeah, no, it's publishing is a big part of our income as artists, and a big part of that is, you know, whenever our song gets played somewhere, we're supposed to get paid for it. And in a lot of these situations, obviously that's not happening. So I think right then and there, you know, you get the publisher involved, and definitely my lawyer will be involved.
Is there a song of yours that you could imagine lending to a politician so that when they got introduced and marched into a room, they'd be marching into what?
Oh, what song or what
Yes.
politician?
What
'Cause
song
I was
of yours?
Bernie Sanders comes to mind. But what song? I mean, New Low maybe is from my last record, and I think you might have been playing it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some jump to it, so I think it might be appropriate.
Is there a lyric in that song in particular you think works for a particular politician?
It's actually more for helping people kind of get out of their comfort zone, to just get out there and organize. So I don't know particularly if it's for a particular politician, but.
Raleigh, you got one?
Yeah, I got one. It's not going to be a specific person. Maybe they don't exist yet. Maybe they haven't been discovered yet. But whoever can really put up a fight against Doug Ford, they can welcome for free, use my song Skyline.
Skyline.
Skyline, yeah.
Which, is there a lyric in that you think works?
Yeah, well, it's a diss song for Doug Ford, so
Now,
it's pretty fitting, you know?
you know what was interesting? When you said that, I looked into the audience. Half the people clapped. Half the people did not.
Yes.
There's some Ford Nation supporters out here, I think.
Oh, yeah, he's very popular.
They don't want to clap because they think they're outnumbered in this church. But, you know, I suspect they must be out there. The guy just won his third majority.
The silent majority.
First past the post.
First past the post. Sarah Harmer is not wrong. Yes, sir, you're next.
Hello, my name is Cam. I'm born and raised in Hamilton. And
Cam?
I like to, yeah? Hi,
Is that
Steve.
Cam McLennan?
Yeah, it
Hi,
is.
Cam. We used to go on ski trips together when we were kids.
Cam McLennan?
Cam
He's
McLennan.
my first bass player.
Come on.
I'm not joking. Hi, Cam.
Hi. and yes, I know Steve, and yes, Tom and I played together many, many years ago.
That was a Hamilton moment. Oh, my God.
And in fact, so I want to take us away from politics just for a moment and take us back into the glory of Canadian music. And if there are viewers who don't know where to look for Canadian music other than the august guests you have on your show, I suggest people look for Inuit throat singers. Look that up and hear it if you've never heard it before. If you're looking for the sound of Canada, there's one that just cuts right through you.
Yeah.
And it's not like
Yo.
anything you've ever heard before.
Shout out Tanya Tagad.
Tagad.
Yes, yes. The music of Stan Rogers.
Yeah.
From Hamilton. Hamilton's own.
Yeah. Reach back a bit to Kate and Anna McGarrigle from Montreal. And there are three words that I don't think I've heard tonight. I'm not sure. But these three words are Stompin' Tom Connors.
Yeah, we said it once.
Was
We
it
just
said?
it
Okay,
once.
I missed it. Very
Yeah.
good. That's all. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thanks,
for
Cam.
this. Yeah, cool.
Cam, are you getting Stinko on a Sudbury Saturday night? That's what I want to know. Well done. Hey, as long as we're in the Hammer, let's not forget Ian Thomas. He's a huge superstar from this town. Right on. Love Ian. And in fact, I just spoke to his brother Dave Thomas last week because he just literally last week was in Ukraine, going over there on his own nickel to talk to soldiers, to talk to comedians, to see if we can still be funny at a time like this. Anyway, he hope to get him back on the agenda real soon to talk about that. Anyways, yes, sir. Oh, I love the T-shirt. Look at that. There's Junk House. Tom, you got to like that.
Yeah. I'm Mike from Hamilton, born and raised, and I can confirm I've run into Tom at the Fortinos, and I have the selfie to prove it. First of all, I'd like to thank Tom and Sarah. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent. I've been playing guitar for my own enjoyment for 35 years. Just sitting and learning your songs and playing along with them. Sometimes that is my own warbled versions of them, but it's brought me many hours of pleasure, and I just want to thank you for your music.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
What I wanted to say is, maybe, what are your thoughts? I know art is always inherently of a place and time, and it's just inherently political. What do you think as Canadians, maybe even the ones down there, creators, need to do to remind Americans that a lot of what they assume is American entertainment culture is actually Canadian-based? I'm thinking of genres like Americana and folk rock, which is really based on, all those bands can count the band as their influence, a band of Canadians. Ivan Reitman, your former childhood neighbor Martin Short, Sarah Pauli. I mean, we can go on and on. So people in movie, TV, Saturday Night Live wouldn't exist without a Canadian and mostly Canadian cast. Do we, or what do we need to do to remind them that, hey, what your American culture is actually Canadian
We are
culture.
Canadian. We're just too cool to do anything like that.
Well said, Tom. Yes, please. Who's next? Oh, is this going to be a team effort here?
Well, I'm asking, my name's Karina,
Hi, Karina.
and this is my youngest.
What's her name?
Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
So as a mom of some pretty creative kids, what advice would each of you give to young people that are wanting to do something with their art, their music, their songwriting? From your own experiences, what would you tell these young people?
Advice for young people. Go ahead, Raleigh, start us off.
Yeah, well, I feel like I was really lucky to have people in my family who really encouraged me to make music. My uncle Brett Miles, my mom, my dad. My dad was a radio DJ in Edmonton, and so I grew up around all this music, including rap music. But I think the number one thing is, encourage that spirit. I think now more than ever, there is less space in everyday life for creativity, for art, for just thinking outside of the box. And anytime, the young person in your life is showing that spirit, you got to encourage it when you see it.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah, I would say the same. My parents didn't love the idea that when I was 17, I was playing in smoky bars in the Saddle Tramps at the Corktown Tavern, actually. But they had confidence in that I would figure it out. My mom would always say, "You'll figure it out." She just kind of gave me, and I thought, okay, well, she thinks I will, so that will, it really went a long way. Just knowing that I was, just the confidence to let me explore and not put too many constraints on, like, when are you getting a job or what are you really going to do. I was really lucky in that way.
Yeah.
Tom.
Oh. Well, when I was a kid, they didn't even have art. The artist that is in all of us, including your children, is that burning desire to create, and to, if they have to find that road themselves, it's up to them to make those decisions. It's up to you, as Sarah said, not to encourage a different way to live. This is the way to live. If you are going to live as an artist, it is something that you see through until they're throwing dirt on you at the end of the story. And along that way, find groups, communities that nurture your kids' burning desire. Find people that have the same burning desire as your children and can dance like that.
Rachel, that's very impressive. Well done. That's great. Well, that's our time, and I got to say a few thank yous before we wrap things up here. First of all, I really do want to thank this audience, which has myriad other options of other things to do on this night, and you've decided to spend your time with us, so we're grateful to you. I want to thank a guy named Mark Ford, who's not related to the Premier, you'll be glad to know. He's our technical lead here and make sure that everything ends up tickety-boo, which it has. Sheldon Osmond, our director, who is a wonderful guy. Thanks to you two and the wonderful crew here for making it all work. Hillary Clark is the woman who produces all of the episodes of TVO Today Live. And Hillary, you put the puck in the net again today. Well done. We want to thank the city of Hamilton, of course, for making us feel so welcome. I am not surprised, because this city has been making Paikins feel welcome since we moved here in 1897. That you can applaud if you want. Hear, hear for the hammer. I want to thank the staff here at the Music Hall. And is that Kevin Dick at the very back of the hall there waving at me? Yes, it is. Kevin, you did a great job. Thanks for your tireless efforts to make this gorgeous venue feel like a home away from home for us. As always, I want to thank Red Wilson for his generous underwriting of this series so that all these people could be here tonight for no charge to enjoy hearing the wisdom from these folks. Thank you, Red Wilson. We do want to say we've got a special website where if you liked what you heard today, you can go back and look at other episodes of this series, tvo.org/TVO Today Live, or just go to the YouTube and look at TVO Today and you'll find everything there as well. And finally, I know you're going to want to join me in thanking Cadence Weapon and Sarah Harmer and Tom Wilson, Dale Hahage, for coming to join us here tonight at the Music Hall. I'm Steve Paikin. Good night, everybody, from downtown Hamilton. Oski Lewis. Good night.
TVO Today Live is made possible by the generous support of the Wilson Foundation.